duty calls, the LAPD responds.
Let's be careful out there.
Working as a team to protect and to serve.
Whoever's got a gun, leave us alone! Why don't you just let her go? We have a critical missing.
I lost my puppy.
To fight crime and to keep our streets safe.
Call from the Amber Alert.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mary Grady, Public Information Director for the Los Angeles Police Department. Welcome to Inside the LAPD. They're traditionally known as man's best friend, but here at the department, they are much more than that. They are also partners in solving crime and in arresting the worst of the worst on the streets of Los Angeles. They are the members of the very elite K-9 unit here at the department. Today, we're going to meet the officers and the dogs that make up the unit. We're going to see how they train. We're going to go on a ride along, and we're also going to talk about the department's first ever K-9 breeding program. Joining me is Officer Mike Gooseby of the LAPD. Mike, how long have you been with the department?
17 years.
And K-9 for?
10 years.
Why K-9?
When I came on early on, and I'd always noticed that K-9 was always at everything. So anything that had any action tied to it, K-9 was there. So that's the job I wanted to do.
All right, and this is?
This is Luca. He's
Luca.
He's
Hi,
a 6-year-old
Luca.
Belgian Malinois. He's a little friendly.
Hi, Luca.
He's just excited. Sits.
He's
so
6
excited.
years old?
6 years old.
And he's been with the department for how long?
He's with the department for 4 years.
Okay.
We bought him when he was 2 years old.
And he looks like he's a very excitable dog.
Yeah. Well, he's out here in the training field right now, and he knows that now's the time for him to perform some training exercises, and he gets excited about that.
You know what? Speaking of training, I'm going to have you kind of describe some of the training and have you and Luca actually go through it and show us what the LAPD K-9 does when
Sounds
they're
good.
out on duty.
What we start off with, usually every night when we come to work, is we do what we call protection and control exercises. And protection and control kind of simulates the dog finding the suspect in the field. And our dogs are trained to find and bark. So they find the suspect. If the suspect's not combative and he's not moving, the dog will bark at the suspect once he locates him. So we're going to put Brian out here in a bite suit, and we're going to do some different exercises to simulate when the dog is finding a suspect. And all this also helps our control of the dog. The dog has to know that if the decoy is not fighting or moving, the dog has to bark. If the decoy decides to move or fight the dog, then the dog will take a bite hold of the decoy. And then there are times that I may send him in and call him back without him doing anything. The first exercise we're going to do is we're going to demonstrate the dog finding the suspect and the suspect not moving. So the dog will go in and do what we call a find and bark, or a hold and bark, if you will. So I'll have Brian. It's going to be a hold without. And the command we use for the dog is revere. And he goes in to bark. Plutz! Plutz! Off. The next thing we're going to do is when the suspect does move, and then the dog will take a bite hold of the suspect. Revere. Plutz! Off. Off. Now I'll simulate now, sending the dog in, but the last second I'll change my mind and call the dog back before he gets to the decoy. Revere. Plutz! Plutz! Off. And when he goes in, he has to do whatever I tell him to do. So I'll send him in this time to bark, but I'll put him on a down as he's on his way in. Revere. Off! Plutz! And then there's times when, if we have an armed suspect and the suspect is not being cooperative, or he poses a danger to ourselves or to citizens, then we may send a dog, and we call it direct deployment, which we command the dog to bite. Off. Straight hit. Bucking. Plutz! Plutz. Off. But once again, as you see, the dogs got to be trained with one command. One command to go in, one command to come back to us. So they got to be highly trained, and It takes a lot of work to get to this point, but like I said, we do this every night, at least 30 minutes a night with all the dogs in the unit. One last thing we do is a handler protection type of thing, where I'll send the dog up, I'll put him on a down, I'm going to simulate searching Brian, and the dog is pretty much my protection. If Brian goes to fight me or run, then the dog will come to my aid, and we'll simulate that. Plutz. Plutz. Off. Put your hands up. Blind. 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 So if the suspect is cooperative and doesn't move, then the dog stays there. But if I come in and I'm searching the suspect and he goes to break away from me or something, then the dog comes in to my aid. Plutz! Plutz! Off! Off! And that's pretty much what we do, simulating the protection control part of our training.
If you get caught with an illegal gun in LA, now you can be sent to federal prison, far away from your friends and family. So, if you think it's cool to carry an illegal gun or commit a crime with one, you've been watching too much TV.
Hello, my name is Earl Paislinger, and I'm an assistant chief of the Los Angeles Police Department. I was raised in Los Angeles and have spent my entire life right here in this community. I've seen many dynamic changes in LA, but other problems still remain. Crime, gangs, drugs. These problems aren't the stuff of reality TV, they're real and we see them every day. I decided I could make a difference in our community by becoming a member of the LAPD, and you can too. Your community needs you and they need you now. You can make a difference. Join the LAPD.
Seats. Seats. Seats.
How has the training changed in the last several years?
It's very important, paramount, that we have really good control over our dogs, and that's what we really focus on in the unit.
You were explaining a little bit about that control and how that control is done. There's actually a collar, specific collar that the dogs
Yes.
wear. Explain
Yes.
that for me.
The collar is it's an electric collar. It's what we like to call an invisible leash. It's not a punishment tool, it's a conditioning tool, and that's our philosophy behind it. It's no different than giving the dog a correction with a leash. The collar has intensities from anything from a prick that is very minor to something more serious, depending on the disobedience that the dog is displaying. And we need that because we may have to call our dog off a situation where he's going to get killed. He could be with a suspect in a fight where the suspect has a knife, and for the dog's own good, we would want him to come back to our side. We may plus have liability issues and not only injury to the dog, but injury to the suspect we like to minimize, and we want that dog back at our side as soon as possible, as soon as the tactical situation dictates.
What's the breed that's the most commonly used?
We've kind of gone to the Belgian Malinois and the Dutch Shepherd, which have really proved to us, at least in the recent years, to be a better buy for us, especially for what we do. You know,
How expensive are these kinds of animals?
you know, they can get anywhere from, we pay between $700 and $8,500 for a dog. Sometimes less, sometimes more, but that's the basic price.
Do you buy them when they're puppies?
We've bought the dogs as young as 12, 13 months, but normally they're like 2.5, 3 years old, and they're what's called title dogs. We buy them from vendors that purchase the dogs in Europe. They're sport dogs where they compete. It's very, very big over there. They have KMVP, French Ring Sport, Schitzen. These are some of the sport dogs. Some of the titles these dogs have from Europe, and depending on the amount of training and the age, varies on the price of the dog.
So then when you get them from Europe, you almost have to retrain them because they're not actually trained as police dogs.
They have a lot of the traits and a lot of the basic foundation training that we implement in our program, but yeah, we do. We have to add a lot to it. We have to add the search work into it and some of the control things that we do with the dog. But it does give us a good foundation to start off with.
At what point did you decide, you know what, why can't we breed our own?
Well, you know, it was funny because over the years we have found, at least I found, that some of the some of the better dogs that I was getting were the younger dogs, the dogs that they weren't so conditioned in one way of doing things, and I could mold them better. So I was starting to purchase dogs that were 12, 13, 14 months old with very little training. They had bite work, they had some obedience, and then I could pretty much mold them to what we wanted out of the dog. So my thought was, you know, why not take it one step further and let's start breeding some dogs from obviously dogs that have the genetic makeup that we want, but that was my plan. And Chief Bratton was good enough to listen to the plan, and he approved it, and last year we did it. We had a breeding.
And what was the result?
Out of the breeding was 8 dogs. I picked 5 to keep. I kept 1 female as a potential future breeder if the program works, and 4 other dogs are in training now. And they're almost 12 months old now, and they're doing just great. I can't say enough. I'm happy with all of them. If everything goes good, I don't see any reason why they shouldn't move on to be full-fledged police dogs. That's my hope.
In the city of Los Angeles, when duty calls, the LAPD responds.
Hey, John, lower the gun, buddy. John, leave the gun.
Working as a team.
Go ahead and put the gun down. John, nobody's gonna come at you, all right? But I'd feel a whole lot better if you were to lower that gun.
To protect and to serve.
Why don't you come back here to me, all right? All right, that's good. Walk toward me with your hands up, John. Put you in handcuffs.
All units code 466.
Thanks for working with me.
K-9 10, show me code 6 on the article search for the Amber Alert.
To fight crime and to keep our streets safe.
Another positive hit on this bag. We believe at this time that the vehicle is in our custody.
Any available unit to respond to the northeast corner, 7th and Gordon for the Amber Alert.
6K 253 ride.
14X11, show us responding.
Cycle 2, we're en route.
This is it.
Let's go.
For the officers of the LAPD, it's all in a day's work. Protecting our families.
Look at your daddy.
They take pride in what they do.
Code from the Amber Alert. Missing child found and returned to parent. Suspect in custody.
LAPD is hiring. Become a part of the team. Visit us at joinlapd.com.
While it's always a good idea to train out in an open field, in reality, much of what the officers and the dogs are doing is searching for suspects. And so that's why they need to practice those skills as well. And when they train in places like this city yard, the work is being done as much for the officers as it is for the animals.
K-9 officer, a lot of times when they're in the field and they get to a command post, they've got to spin a lot of plates. There's a lot of things going on. I mean, officers are just in foot pursuit. You've got perimeters going up. You've got an airship overhead. You've got a suspect or suspects running in a perimeter and a containment. And he's got to kind of decipher all this and set up a plan to try to catch this guy. So we've got to do a lot of thinking, tactically, as well as liability issues and everything else, and a lot of maturity. You're dealing with a dog that is trained to find people, but if the situation warrants it, that person can get hurt by the dog. And you have to have maturity and the decision making to do the right thing at the right time. Having control over your dog is paramount. And once they're out of training, it's up to that handler to make sure he keeps control of that dog. So it's a lot of work.
Do you normally have just one K-9 working the perimeter, or can you have a number of K-9 and then you have to coordinate all of that?
Yeah, we're fortunate enough in this city is that if we have, for example, a 1-block perimeter, and it's a big block, we usually we'll have a minimum of 4 K-9 teams working each night. And we'll split up that block. We'll either work from the outside of the block on both sides of the street, working in, or maybe from the center working out. And what we'll do is, we'll just, during a search, you may have a suspect that's moving in the perimeter. And we just keep covering and pushing to where we finally contain him. You know, the object is to get him into a location or a spot where he has nowhere to go, and hopefully he surrenders. And that's usually what happens. And it makes the search go a lot faster. So it works out pretty good.
So how often do suspects finally just say, oh, no, 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 or they hear the dogs, they know the dog's there, and then they just say, okay, I give up?
Well, I guess this kind of answers the question. We have about anywhere from a 16 to a 22% what we call bite ratio. And that's how many people get bit on searches. So the vast majority do give up. We usually are able to contain them. And what you're doing is you're overpowering them with tactics, with a disciplined, systematic search to where they really don't have a lot of choices. You will occasionally get that suspect that's, you know, very, what's the word, hardcore, doesn't want to surrender, and he wants to take on the dog or try to fight or flee or break into a house even when he's caught, and he may get bit. But that is the suspect's decision, you know, normally. So
it's not the purpose of the dog to bite.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's to locate and bark.
Yeah. Our main purpose is to search and find. What we're going to simulate here is a kind of a typical training search that we're going to do, where we're going to simulate K-9 handler coming out. He responds to a call, gets his dog out, gets the information, gets debriefed at the command post, and once he has the criteria to do a search, which is a outstanding felony suspect with a bookable felony charge, he'll start the search. Now, what's kind of unique, at least with not all agencies, but we're one agency that we do all of our searches off leash, and you'll see that happening here. JD will work his dog. Once he does the K-9 announcement, that dog will be off leash the entire time. This allows the dog to be in I guess you might say, his hunt mode, and he becomes a problem solver. He learns how to search the environment, work the scent cone, and pinpoint the scent source. And he'll do that when he does that, by barking. He'll bark at a location which is going to indicate to the handler that we have a hiding suspect. And if the suspect's accessible, then the dog would do what we call a find and bark, unless he's met with some kind of aggression or attack by the suspect. And then the dog will defend himself. It's the handler's job to expose the dog to scent, getting him in all the areas that he has to locate a scent source. And depending on the environment, especially like in the outside, you can be a little more looser on the search. In a building, you might have to be more detailed. But basically, we're allowing the dog to work the problem himself. And what the dog's doing now is indicating that he's pinpointed a scent source, and hopefully the decoy's up there hiding for us. JD's going to call his dog back. JD will give the commands to the decoy or the suspect to surrender. This is Officer Linda Travis, very seasoned handler. Been doing K-9 for 10 years plus. She has one of the puppies that we have in training now, K-9 Czar, same as the other ones, 12 months old. And we're going to do a little short motivational search right now with Czar. Nothing real complicated. We're just going to what we're doing right now is continue to reinforce the bark alert, where the dog learns to work the scent source out, pinpoint the scent source, and give us a bark alert.
city of Los Angeles.
There is an Amber Alert.
When duty calls, the LAPD responds.
We have a positive on the Amber Alert vehicle.
Open 911 line, fighting and arguing in the background.
To protect and to serve.
¿Estás lastimado?
No.
¿Cuántas personas hay aquí?
Mi hermano está en el baño y mi esposo está ahí.
Pon las manos arriba, por favor. Párese.
Okay, tell me what happened.
My sister's letting me stay there. Lleva aquí un mes, no está pagando renta. Le parece que chocó contra la pared. And he hit me.
Do you want to make a report?
No.
¿Qué usted quiere que nosotros hagamos?
Que lo saque para afuera, que se vaya.
Brother-in-law doesn't want you staying there anymore. You all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Gracias.
Okay, está bien.
Standing with our community.
When we first got there, I didn't know what the heck we had.
1653, unknown trouble. Male and female arguing inside of a green vehicle. Stop on the 6th Street Bridge. Respond code 3. Any area that come in on Holland.
Leave us alone!
Driver's got a gun.
6 King 253, requesting backup. 415 man with a gun. We're on the 6th Street Bridge facing westbound.
Hello. All right, show me en route.
For the officers of the LAPD, it's all in a day's work. Working as a team, they take pride in what they do.
I'm not coming out of the car!
Okay, listen, we've got time to work this out.
Shut up!
Let's just talk right now.
This has nothing to do with you, man.
I know you're upset. I want you to talk here.
911 emergency. The little girl that's missing?
Yeah.
What is your name? What is your name, sir? Hello? Hello? Hello?
The caller's DOA.
Get away from the car or I'll shoot her! I'm gonna kill her, man!
Listen to me. Why don't you just let her go? Girl's coming out. Hey, John, lower the gun, buddy.
Become a part of the team. The LAPD is hiring. Visit us at joinlapd.com.
We go out every night and train the dogs, and then we go out and wait for the calls to come in to apprehend, all felons and armed misdemeanors. We try and get out every night and do some ongoing training with the dog. I mean, every dog is different in this unit. They all have their strong and weak points. So we try and, keep their strong points strong and then reinforce those weak points so they can be strong in the future. Case in point is, my dog's a new dog. He's probably been out searching for about, a couple of months now. And I was involved in a search 2 weeks ago where we had to clear a residence for a suspect that had just shot somebody. And the dog was come to the front door of the house, and there was the Spanish porcelain tile that was a high gloss with a very intricate design on it. And the dog had never seen anything like that. Now this dog in the back of this car he's a pretty tough dog. He bites hard and he finds the bad guy pretty well. But then I threw him in this house, and he had never seen this tile, and he refused to move. He just froze up. He just was like a pointer. He just wouldn't move. So obviously that was a problem that I discovered about my dog. Now, if I was involved in a SWAT search where I had to go clear a residence after they had, deemed it safe, and I took my dog in to clear it, now I put my dog in a situation like this, and the dog can't search because he's afraid of tile. So, the next night I was out and finding different locations where there's, hardwood floors, tile, linoleum, whatever I could get the dog to walk on. And initially he didn't want to walk on it, so I'd get the Kong, and I made a game out of it. I just throw the Kong in there, and the dog was very excited, so he'd run in there and get the Kong and bring it back out. I kept doing that about 4 or 5 times. Now the dog's kind of secure in his footing. Then I would take, 4 or 5 tennis balls and hide them in the kitchen area of this house on a tile floor, and the dog would go in and search for the tennis balls. Now the dog is doing his job, and he's overcome that fear because his drive is to find the tennis ball. When I go to work, he goes to work. But we just finished up our year last week, and At the end of the year, we had 518 searches. When the dog finds somebody, that's his reward. Whether he bites them or he finds him, we're going to let the dog make that connection when he sees the suspect coming out. You know, obviously we're going to have the dog there in case the guy tries to run. You know, we're not going to go put the dog away once we find the guy. We're going to have the dog leashed up so that, you know, in case the guy decides that, you know, even though he's been caught, he can still run. So we can use the dog to attempt to apprehend him. But the dog makes a connection. He sees the bad guy, and the fear sense coming off the bad guy. The dog's looking at him. The dog becomes animated, and you praise up the dog. Oh, he's a good boy. That's a good boy. So the dog, that's his reward. You know, if the suspect decides to fight, you know, that's even a greater reward for the dog because the dog obviously bites the guy. I've always wanted to be a K-9 handler, and it's a pretty rewarding thing when you're out there and you see these patrol officers that are hustling around and chasing these bad guys down dark alleys and whatnot, and then they got them contained in a city block, and then your dog comes in and finds them. You know, you actually feel like you're making society a little bit better, I guess. And so I think that's probably the greatest reward.
In the end, it is these brave animals who will rush into danger. They'll face a dangerous suspect head on to protect their partner. Through all their training and all their hard work and all their dedication, they have the same goal as their human partners, to come home at night safely. I'm Mary Grady for Inside the LAPD. Join us again next time. Right, Axel? Right? Right.